Now, just to talk a little bit about what we're going to be going over today in this webinar. Number one, we're going to be talking about sales workflows, when to use an invoice versus a sales receipt versus an invoice, what each one of them does, and the different effects that it's going to have on your reporting, your customers list, various things like that. We'll also talk about personalizing your sales forms to suit your own business. That way you can make sure that your messaging is correct whenever you're sending out invoices or sales receipts to your customers, adding your logo onto your sales forms, things like that. We'll also talk a little bit about capturing sales outside the office on the mobile app, which is an app that you can download for free onto your phone and your tablet. And you can record sales from customers. You can record you receiving payments from customers. You can generate estimates, invoices, you name it. You can do all that great stuff. In fact, if you have your customers' information on the customers list, you can even use the QBO app to then transfer their address information over onto Google Maps, and you can see where they're at on a map. So it's pretty cool stuff. Accounts receivable. Number 4, we're going to go over accounts receivable, what that is, and I'm going to sprinkle that throughout. You'll learn about accounts receivable really throughout the entire webinar. And we'll also follow up with some accounts receivable reports so you can see who owes you and whether or not they're overdue and different aging information on that accounts receivable. We'll also talk about sales reports in general, how to track who is buying things from you and also what it is they're buying. So being able to collate that information and look at it and reflect on your business is important. QuickBooks Online can do all that for you, or at least help you do it. And we are also here to answer your questions. So those are the 5 major things that we're going to be hitting for today's class. Now I'm going to go ahead and open up my QBO company file in the window that I have behind my PowerPoint. Here we go. Now, today I'm going to be using a version of QuickBooks Online called QuickBooks Online Accountant, which is virtually identical to the regular version of QuickBooks Online. The only difference is that I have a couple of little additional selections right up here at the top left. Besides that, it works exactly the same. In fact, right here I'm on my dashboard. And if it wasn't for this and this top green thing, you probably wouldn't even know the difference. So this is what I'm going to be using today. And the reason why I'm going to be doing that is because I want to demonstrate a feature of QuickBooks Online called QuickBooks Online Payments. And I have a QuickBooks Online Payments account set up in this QBO company. And so I'm going to be able to demonstrate to you how exactly you can actually receive credit card payments and also free bank transfers from your customer. And that's why I'm using this company file. So first of all, I'd like to talk a little bit about customers and also the different workflows that we use to record sales. And right here, I'm going to go ahead and go over to sales and then customers up here at the very top. And this is where we can see information about the people that we sell things to. Now, you can set up customers ahead of time if you know that you're going to be invoicing them later on, and you can enter their information ahead of time. That way, whenever you eventually invoice them or eventually create sales receipts for them, it'll automatically populate their information onto those sales transactions. So right up here, if you select new customer, this is where you can enter their information ahead of time. Now you can also enter their names on the invoices or on the sales receipts as you create them. It's just I think that in a lot of cases, it's a little bit faster and easier to do it this way ahead of time. Also, if you're using sales receipts, which we'll get to in a little bit, it doesn't actually require you to put a customer's name in unless you want to look up that information later on in a report. You can choose to do so. So here in the customer's information screen, we can load up all sorts of information about our customers, like their company name, email address. We've got address information right here. So lots of great contact information available. You can also enter notes for your customers, so you can keep track of information about that. There's also sales tax information right here. If they're exempt from sales tax, you can enter that, as well as payment and billing. If you want to assign terms to your customers, that is how many days they have to pay whenever you send them an invoice, that's something you can set up ahead of time. There's also a place right here for opening balance. So whenever you're setting up a new customer, you can tell QuickBooks about how much money they owe you as of that day that you're setting them up, basically catching QuickBooks up to the fact that they already owe you money. There's also attachments right here. So if you have any documents that they've given to you, anything that they've signed, and you want to attach their customer records so you can easily retrieve it either from the computer that you're putting it onto right now or from any other computer that you ever sign into QuickBooks Online from, you can attach it right into this screen. All you have to do is drag it and drop it into this box, and QBO will then upload that document to QuickBooks Online. So this is where we're able to see information about our customers. We see their names, their addresses, phone numbers, email addresses, and also their balances. And the balance is their accounts receivable balance. That's how much money that customer currently owes you. So you can get a great wealth of information about your customers from this list. And if you want to drill down any further, you can click on their name. And then right here, you can also see a listing of sales transactions that you've had with them. And what's great about this is that it keeps track of what part in the process of the sale you're at. So it tells you whether or not the invoice is open or closed, whether or not it's been paid, and also if you sent an invoice to a customer, it even tells you whether or not they've opened it in their inbox yet. You can actually see whether or not they've even looked at the invoice that you sent them. Another thing that we need to keep track of here for sales are the things that we sell. If you go up here to the products and services area, you can see a list of the products and services that you sell. You can see the sales descriptions that will later be entered onto sales transactions, as well as the sales prices. And if it's something that you also buy from vendors, such as inventory, it'll also show you your cost. So this is what you pay when you buy it. Now, whenever you set up a new product or service, you click on New, and from here you're able to choose between non-inventory services. There's also bundles and potentially inventory if you're using QBO Plus. Now, we have a specific class just for inventory. We teach it once a month. If you're curious about inventory, I definitely recommend you sign up for that one. And we're going to send out links towards the end of the class where you can learn more about our other classes. But right here, you can choose between, mostly it's going to be non-inventory and services. Non-inventory are usually physical products that you sell, but you don't keep track of them, and you don't keep track of your quantity on hand in QuickBooks. Whereas you also have services, and services are just services that you provide for your clients. Now, both of these products and services are set up in the exact same way. Whenever you select one of them, you then put in their names, which is required. And then potentially you also put in the SKU, which is the stock keeping unit. That's a unique identifier that you assign to your product or service, so you can identify it on inventory reports and sales forms. There's also a sales information area where you can enter what it is that customers will eventually see once you send them an invoice or a sales receipt, as well as the sales price rate. That's the default amount that you sell a product or service for. You can always change it whenever you're actually entering the sale, though. So whatever you enter right here is not necessarily permanent. And there's also the income account. So this is the income account that QuickBooks Online uses to categorize any sales with that you have, and then put it onto the products and then put it onto the profit and loss statement. So if we have $1,000 worth of sales for this particular product that we're setting up, it would put that $1,000 into the services income account on our profit and loss statement. That serves as sort of a pointer from the product or service onto your financial statements, telling it where to orient that income. Now, we've already got some of our products and services set up, and you'll find that whenever you first start using QBO, it will already have a couple of them in here for you. It'll have hours, it'll have a catch-all product named products, and then a catch-all service named services. Anything outside of that, you'll generally need to set up for yourself. We've set up installation services and also rock fountains right here. And we also have the sales description and the sales price right there. And it looks like I have misspelled rock fountain. I put a T at the end. And to change that, you can click on Edit right over here on the right-hand side. And that allows you to change anything about the product or service that you've set up. Right here, I can change the spelling of rock fountain, and then I'll save and close. Now that's all set up. Now, products and services and customers are things that generally every company file is going to need, but how exactly you're going to be entering your sales varies depending upon when during the sales process your customer pays you, whether they pay you right up front as soon as the sale takes place, or whether they pay you later on after you've invoiced them and you've given them a couple of days to pay. So let's talk about different workflows that go along with how exactly you're going to be recording these sales and also eventually recording customer payments as well. So first of all, we've got the workflow on the left-hand side, which is the more simple of the two, which is customer pays at the time of the sale. Now, when a customer pays at the time of the sale, we can generally think of that as being a retail location or a restaurant. So if somebody is coming into your store and they're just buying something from you and they're paying you right away, that's the process that you use on the left. The very first transaction you record there is going to be a sales receipt. That tells QuickBooks not only about the sale, but also the fact that you've received money from them. And then eventually, you'll also record a bank deposit. Now, in some cases, you may not need to record a bank deposit, and we'll talk about what situations those might be in. But generally speaking, whenever you record a sale, you're going to be telling QuickBooks where the money is going, whether it's going into the checking account or operations account immediately as soon as you get it, or if it's going to stay someplace between when you get it and when it eventually finds its way to the bank. Places like, well, for instance, say a cash register, for instance, or say if you are paying, say, like a merchant services company to keep track of money and then make one big deposit at the end of the day. So different situations arise for different businesses depending upon where it is that the money is going into as soon as you get it. We'll talk about those different situations that you might run into during this webinar. Over on the right-hand side, we have a different workflow. This is if the customer has a number of days to pay. So basically, you're going to be sending them an invoice, and then you're going to wait a couple of days, and then hopefully, eventually, fingers crossed, right, they pay you. And when they do pay you, you're going to record this as a receive payment. That tells QuickBooks specifically about a payment from that customer, and you can assign that payment to a particular invoice to close it. You're also going to tell QuickBooks where the money goes once you get it. And that's an important step as well, just like with the sales receipt, because if the money is going directly into your checking or your operations account or anything like that, you can tell QuickBooks about that. But more often than not, you're going to be holding that payment back and depositing it with other customer payments, either through a merchant services company, which is making a big deposit at the end of the day for all of your customer payments, or just because you're going to take all that money and all those checks to the bank at the end of the day and deposit them yourself. Either one of those situations, you can still do it through QuickBooks, and I'm going to show you the different workflows for that. There's also something available for us called QBO payments, which allows you to get paid by your customers much faster because you can actually put a pay now button on the invoices as you send them out. Or if you're just recording a sale that somebody is giving to you in terms of them just giving you their debit card or your credit card, you can key in that debit card or credit card with a sales receipt and you could process that sale directly through QuickBooks. We'll talk about all those possibilities. Now, the first one that I like to talk about is giving customers a number of days to pay. So let's talk about the invoicing process. Now, I'm going to go over here to my sales screen again, and we're going to be working with a customer that I have set up called My Customer. Very imaginative of me, right? And with this customer, I've actually assigned their email address to be qboshooting30@gmail.com. And as it happens, I actually have that email address open in this other tab. So we're actually going to be able to see all of the interactions, both on the QuickBooks side and also on the customer side. So you can see what it is that your customers will eventually see once you send them invoices and sales receipts and things like that. So to get started with this process, right here we can see that my customer owes us $0. So they don't have any accounts receivable balance right now. Now we're going to send them an invoice. So to do that, I'm going to select the plus button up here, the create menu. And then underneath customers, I'm going to select invoice. So invoices are highly customizable. There are lots of different things that you can do with these. First of all, I'm going to put the customer's name in, which is my customer. And notice that QuickBooks automatically puts in the email address and also the address right here. And it does that because I set them up ahead of time on that customer's list. Now, right now we only see the terms, invoice date, and due date. Terms are the number of days that the customer has to pay from the day that you invoice them. So we're invoicing them from May 2nd, 2018. They get 30 days to pay it. which means that this is going to be due on June 1st, 2018. That's 30 days from now. Up here, we also have two options checked off for online payments, cards and free bank transfers. That means that whenever we eventually send the invoice off to the customer, they're going to get a button on the invoice that allows them to pay us with credit card or with free bank transfer. This is called QBO payment, and it's a free service, doesn't cost you anything to sign up for. And the bank transfers, if the customer pays you with a bank transfer, it doesn't cost you anything. There is a cut that Intuit takes out of debit cards and credit card payments, but we'll get to that here in a little bit. Now, up here at the top right, there's also the gear icon. This allows you to add and subtract various customization options from your invoices and your sales receipts. Now, the most common thing that people request for their sales transactions is the ability for them to number these sales transactions themselves, because whenever you first go into QuickBooks Online, notice that there's no place on here for me to put an invoice number. But it is something that I can program into QuickBooks Online to allow me to do it by opening up this customization form and then selecting custom transaction numbers. It's this option right here. Select that one. And as soon as that's selected, notice that it has an invoice number field. So now we can enter whatever invoice number we want to for this invoice. And QuickBooks will continue to keep track of those numbers as it goes on. So once we record this invoice, for instance, QuickBooks will automatically choose 1051 for the next invoice number. But you can always override it if you need to. There are other options up here, though. There's also shipping. So if you select shipping, it actually gives you ship via, shipping date, and also tracking numbers. That way you can tell your customer about all this information as you send them that invoice or that sales receipt. There's also a discount option. So if you select total discount, notice that down here at the bottom now, we have the ability to give customers a discount as a percentage or as a value. And that just takes that straight off of the total amount for the invoice. Then we have other options like deposit. If a customer is paying you for part of an invoice up front, you can record that deposit amount down here, as well as tell QuickBooks about where that money is being deposited at your checking account or in undeposited funds or what have you. And then down here we also have a date. If you perform services for clients and these different services are performed on different days, you can enter different days for each one of the different line items on the invoice or on the sales receipt as you create it. And then there's also SKU. If you want to see the SKU for your products and services as you fill out an invoice, you can do it right here as well. Finally, there are, Finally, there are custom fields. If you click on Add Your Own Field right here, you can enter your own fields like sales rep, or really anything that you want to record on your sales forms. You get 3 of those. So you can enter whatever data you want to in those fields. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of most of this stuff, though. That way we can make our sales forms a little bit simpler. There we go. So we're back to where we started. Now, filling out an invoice is pretty simple. Right here we have our products and services. This is a listing of the products and services that we saw earlier from the products and services list. And I'm going to go ahead and choose, we're going to say that this customer is going to buy a rock fountain from us and then also pay us to install that rock fountain. So first of all, choose rock fountain. They're buying one of those. Notice that it brings in the rate automatically. That comes from my products and services list. So I set it up ahead of time, and it saved me a lot of time because it brings in the rate and also the description. Then down here, I'm also going to put in installation services. So charges for installation of rock fountain, and then it brings in the rate for that as well. But it takes 3 hours to install a rock fountain. So I'm going to change that around. Now, at this point with this invoice, we're telling our customer about these 2 different things that we're selling them. But we're going to say there's more stuff going on in this invoice. But before we enter anything else on this invoice, we want to link these 2 products or services together with a single subtotal. That way our customer can see all of the prices for the rock fountain and installation of the rock fountain, and then see a total for all of that underneath it, and then any other additional charges underneath that. So in order to get a subtotal for anything that's above where you want the subtotal to appear, just click on the line above where you want the subtotal to be. So if I want the subtotal to be right here, I'll click on the line above that line and then select Add Subtotal. And notice that it puts the subtotal in the line underneath where I was selecting. So now we can see a subtotal for the rock fountain and also for the 3 hours worth of installation. And now I can continue adding more things. So maybe there's also other products that we're selling. I'll just choose products right there. We'll put in a quantity and a rate. And then I'll also put in some other services. We'll put in a quantity and a rate right there. And then I want a subtotal for adding up these two together. So I'll click on the line above where I want the subtotal to appear, because I want it to be right here. And then I'll click on Add Subtotal. And so now we can see this area of the invoice for the rock fountain and the installation of the rock fountain, and then other products and services as well with their own lines and their own subtotals. And if we look at the total invoice, we can see that it's for $1,015. Now, if you want to delete any of this information, or if you want to reorder any of it, you can also do that. Just click on the little trash can right over here to get rid of something. Or if you want to reorder anything on an invoice, you can put your cursor over the 9 little dots over here on the left-hand side next to whatever it is you want to move, and then click and hold down your left mouse button and then drag it to where you want it to appear. Notice that there's a little green arrow over there, and that tells me that I can move it there. And then I'll release my mouse button, and then now we've got installation services appearing first. So you can reorder these however you want to, and then delete them and add whatever line items you need. So down here we also have message displayed on invoice. That's a personalized message that we can send or add onto the invoice as we create it. And then there's also a message displayed on statement. If you eventually send out statements to your customers with a listing of all the different invoices and payments and things like that that you've received from them over a period of time, this is a special message that'll be displayed next to this invoice on any future statements. Down here, we also have attachments. So if you have anything else you want to keep track of for this sales transaction, you can attach it right here, and it'll be attached to that invoice. Now, what I'm going to do is save and send this by clicking Save and Send, and that's going to save and email the invoice out to the customer. Over here on the left-hand side, we can see that we've got our online payments, cards, and also free bank transfers, the subject line of the email that they'll be sent, as well as the body of the email that they'll be sent. And this is a preview over on the right-hand side of what it is that they're going to see. This is the email. Dear my customer, here's your invoice. We appreciate your prompt payment. And then scrolling down, this is what they're going to see. And they've got a review and pay button right there. Scrolling down further, it's then got their invoice. We can see all of that. Now, what I want to do is see this from the customer's point of view, though. So I'm going to send and close this. And then go and open up this tab right here that I have for my email address. Here we go. So we just got the invoice in email. I'm going to click on it to go take a look at it. And so this is what the customer sees right here. And they're able to see the amount, the bill to terms. This is all stuff that we saw earlier. This is information about the sales, the sales items. It's got a little account summary down here. So they get all this great information. And then we've also got a legal disclaimer down here. We're not responsible for anything under any circumstances, no matter whatever, ever. And then they can click on, because we use that QBO payments option, they can click on review and pay. And reviewing and paying is going to bring up the invoice into this window, and they're able to see the invoice detail right here. And then they can also click on activity. Now, what's cool about this is that your customers can keep track of when they received an invoice, and they can also ask questions of you. And so if they have any questions about this invoice, they can type it in right here, like, I have questions. And then they can click on send. That is going to email you their question, and it also updates that in the invoice itself in QuickBooks. So right here we have our customers list, and we can see my customer right now has a balance of $365. That's from the invoice that I just sent out. Now, whenever I click on their record here, here's the invoice that we just sent to them. and we can see that it's open, which means that it hasn't been paid yet, and it's been viewed. So we can see that they've seen it. And it's got a little number right here for 1. That means that they've sent us a question. They typed that into the activity area. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the invoice, scroll down a bit, and here it has the entire history of the invoice. It's got a record of us sending it. It's got a record of the customer viewing it. And then the customer says, I have questions. And then we'll write back, well, we have answers. And then we'll post that. And that gets also put onto the invoice as the customer sees it. So they would have to open it again or refresh it to get that new information. But it also emails them telling them about that interaction too. And there's that interaction right there. Now, because we sent them that QBO payments option, there is a Pay Now button. They can see their balance due. They just click on Pay Now. And this is going to open up a window where they can put in their credit card information, also bank transfer information. With bank transfer, they just have to put in their routing number and their account number, and the money is taken directly from their bank. There's no charges for that at all. It's a free bank transfer. There are QuickBooks Intuit takes a percentage of the credit card and debit card charges, but we'll show you that here in a little bit whenever I talk a little bit more about actually signing up for this service. So you're able, your customer is able to pay you directly through here. Now, one of the greatest things about QBO payments is that whenever you use this, QBO is going to not only deposit the money directly into your bank account, but it's also going to mark that invoice as being paid. So essentially, if you're using QBO payments, all you have to send out the invoices. And then whenever QuickBooks receives payment, it enters all of those transactions for you automatically. So it receives the payments, it makes the bank deposits, and it clears up everything in QuickBooks. It also closes your invoices. So you don't have to do anything else. QBO does everything else for you. And it's a great time saver that way because it keeps you from doing any more tedious stuff. So if your customer pays you through here, there's nothing else you have to do. But if your customer pays you through any method other than using QBO payments, you do have to manually put those in. Now, to record a customer paying you without using QBO payments, you'll need to click on the Create menu and then choose Receive Payment right here underneath Customers. Now, with the Receive Payment option, we're going to put in the customer's name first, it's my customer, and then right here we have the invoice that they're paying us. So we'll select that. And right over here, QuickBooks assumes that they're paying us for the full amount of the invoice, which you can change, but they are going to pay us for the full amount here. Now, here in the payment method area, we tell QuickBooks how it is that they're paying us. Now, we've got a couple of options. Clicking the drop-down arrow, you automatically have cash, check, credit card, and also wire transfer. But if there's something on here that you don't see but you'd like to add it, just click on Add New, and you can create your own payment methods. Also, if you are in person with that customer, or you're talking with them over the phone and they want to give you their debit card or credit card information, or even their banking information, you can select credit card or wire transfer right here. And if you're using QBO payments, you can select to enter credit card details. There will also be an enter bank details. And you can put the information in right here, or also swipe the card, because Intuit also has available a card swiper that you can get for QBO payments. So you can actually process those payments directly through these sales screens. Now, if that's the case, this is all you have to do. You'll be able to deposit that money directly into your bank accounts, and that's all that QuickBooks has to do. But if you're receiving a payment with a check, or they're paying you through a different merchant services company or something like that, then you'll have to enter a little bit more detail right here. Now, we're going to say that this customer is going to pay us with a check. And we're going to put the check number in they're paying us with. And then right here, we need to tell QuickBooks about where the money is going. This is the deposit to. Now, I know that it's tempting for you to click the drop-down arrow right here and then tell QuickBooks that the money is going into the checking account, because that's eventually where it's probably going to go, right? Whenever you go down to the bank and you deposit everything into your bank account, it goes into an operations account or a checking account. But the question you have to ask yourself is, are you going to receive this payment and then immediately go to the bank and deposit that check by itself without any other customer payments? Or are you going to take that check and then wait until the end of the day when you can go down to the bank with all of the other money that different customers have given you and deposit them together? If you're depositing it right away, and if it is going immediately into that bank account, you can choose your bank account right here. That's fine. But for a lot of you, you are taking this check and you're going to deposit it later on with a lot of other customer payments, or you're using a merchant services company outside of QuickBooks Online that takes the money from customer payments throughout an entire day and then deposits them at the end of the day together. If that's the case, you'll want to use undeposited funds, because undeposited funds allows you to receive payments from multiple customers and then deposit those payments together at the bank, linked together into a single deposit. So if I have 10 payments from my customers throughout the day, but they're all being deposited together at the end of the day, I would need to use undeposited funds. That allows me to link those payments together. Now that's what I'm going to do here. Now with undeposited funds, we have to make one more transaction after this one that links all of those customer payments together. So I'm going to go ahead and save and close here. And we're going to do that here in a few minutes, because I'm going to make a deposit with multiple customers in a little bit. But before I do that, I want to talk about the other workflow, which is sales receipts. Now, earlier we talked about how to deal with customers and sales transactions when we give a customer a number of days to pay. But if the customer pays us at the time of the sale, a little bit easier, because all we have to do is record a sales receipt and then potentially also make a bank deposit. So let's talk about that process really quick. Now, for a sales receipt, all we have to do is open the Create menu and then choose underneath Customers, Sales Receipt. So with the sales receipt, you actually don't have to record a customer's name. You can leave this blank. And for a lot of retail locations and restaurants, that's what you'll do, because you really don't need to know the name of each and every customer that comes in and buys something from you. But if you want to be able to run reports later on that tell you how much each particular customer has paid you over a period of time, what sales you've had with them over a period of time, it is still important for you to record a sale, for you to record a customer here. Now, we're going to say that that's the case for us. We have a returning customer who comes in all the time, and we'd like to track how much money they give to us. So we're going to choose Real World Training right here as the customer's name. And then down here in the products and services area, we'll choose whatever it is that they're buying from us. And we're going to say that they're going to come in, they're going to buy a rock fountain. They say they can install it themselves, so they're not going to pay for any installation labor. And here in the payment method area, we'll tell QuickBooks how it is they're paying us. Now, notice that this is the big difference between a sales receipt and an invoice, because on an invoice, you don't actually tell QuickBooks about you receiving any money. That comes later on. With a sales receipt, you're telling QuickBooks about a sale and where the money is going at the same time. Reduces the number of transactions you have to enter. So we're going to say that this customer, Real World Training, they're going to pay us with cash. They just come in with a wad of $275, and they're going to pay us that way. Now, right here in the deposit to field, again, we have to tell QuickBooks whether or this is going directly into our checking account, which is possible. If the money that you're accepting from a customer is going directly into a checking account, you can select that. Or if you're going to deposit it later on with other customer payments and other customer checks and things like that, we'll choose undeposited funds. This is also what you would use if you're using a merchant services company outside of QuickBooks that makes one big deposit at the end of the day for all of your debit card and credit card charges. Now, that's the case for us. We're going to go ahead and choose undeposited funds because we're going to take it down to the bank with that other check that we got from our last customer. And so now I'm going to go ahead and save and close this. Actually, I'll go ahead and save and send it, because I want you all to see what it looks like whenever we email a sales receipt. Here we have the subject line and also the body of the email that gets sent to them. And then over here on the right-hand side, you're able to see what this transaction looks like whenever they open it up earlier or open it up later on. Notice that my sales transaction actually says donation. Now, if you are running a nonprofit, a sales receipt is what you need to use if somebody donates money to you. And if somebody pledges money to you to be paid later on, you would use an invoice. There is actually a place, which we will go over here in a little bit, where you can tell QuickBooks about different phrases that you want to use for different sales transactions. So if you want QuickBooks to refer to your sales receipts as donations, there is actually a place for you to do that. Or if you want QuickBooks to refer to your estimates as quotes. You can change that as well. So you can get very specific about how QuickBooks refers to these various different forms. We're going to go ahead and send and close this. And that emails out the sales receipt to tell the customer about what they purchased. And so over here, we're able to see sales receipt 1,051. I'm going to click on that, and here we can see what it is that we received from Jason's Pickles and Puzzles. And here is the attached PDF that they can download as well. Now, all that money got recorded into undeposited funds. If the money had gone directly into the checking account, or if we were using QBO payments, it would have all gone into checking and we're done then. But because we used undeposited funds, we have to do one more thing, which is to record a bank deposit, linking those payments from our customers together into a single bank deposit. Whenever you receive money through undeposited funds, the money goes into undeposited funds temporarily. Whenever you click on accounting, you can see the balance for undeposited funds, which is right here. We have $1,140 in undeposited funds right now waiting to be deposited. So to tell QuickBooks about that money being deposited at the bank together, we'll select the Create menu. And then right here underneath Other, choose Bank Deposit. Up here at the top of the screen, QBO lists all of the payments that have been accepted by your company together that are waiting to be deposited. So here we have that transaction with my customer where they paid us $365 with check number 234. We've also got that payment in cash that Real World Training gave to us for $275. So we see these two payments together. Now, because we're going down to the bank with these payments and we're going to be depositing them together, it's important for us to use this screen because right here we can select the checking account where we're depositing the money, and then we can select the payments that we're going to be depositing together. So if I select both of those, we're looking at a single deposit for $640. If I had recorded each one of these being deposited into the checking account by itself, I would have a record of $365 being deposited into checking and then a separate $275 record going into the bank account. I would have two separate deposits if I had used the checking account. But because I use undeposited funds, I can tell QuickBooks about these two payments being deposited together. That way, later on, whenever I download transactions from my bank through online banking, QuickBooks Online will recognize that the amounts in my QuickBooks are the same as the records of the bank. And I can match the manually enter transaction with the downloaded version. Also, it's important for reconciliations because later on, whenever I get a bank statement, it's going to have a single deposit for these two amounts together. It's not going to have two separate deposits. So I'm able to link these two together. Now, if there are any additional charges or anything added on to this deposit, you can actually add it in the Add Funds to this deposit area. So if you're being charged for any merchant services fees or anything like that, you can enter, say, like a merchant services fees expense account. And let's see if I have one. Don't. Maybe I have a bank. I have bank charges. We'll say that there were some bank charges or something like that. And we can actually subtract it from the total of this deposit. So right here, if maybe there were like $5 worth of fees for making this deposit for whatever reason, I can put in a -5 right there and then press tab. And notice that the total amount of the deposit's gone down. So merchant services fees or any even additional money, like if you on your way down to the bank, you pick up another check that you want to deposit, maybe like a refund from a vendor or something like that, you can add it down here to the bottom as a positive or as a negative. Now, once you're finished filling out the bank deposit to make sure that it's the exact amount as it will later appear from your bank, you can save and close. And that records the deposit. And now we only have $500 left in undeposited funds. All that money got moved over into checking. Now, the reason why I didn't select all three of those transactions is because whenever you're recording a bank deposit, I wanted to demonstrate it because you don't have to select everything that's up here. Only select those things that are going to be linked together into that bank deposit. If you make separate deposits, you can choose which transactions are going to go into which one of those deposits. Or if you use multiple merchant services companies or anything like that, you can tailor these deposits to however you need to tailor them to make sure that they reflect what is eventually going to be downloaded from your bank as well. And that's the basics of entering transactions into QuickBooks. Now, I talked about a couple of features like QBO payments and customizing your sales forms and things like that. So let's talk about those. Now, you could set up for QBO payments for free just by clicking on the gear icon and then choosing company settings or account and settings, depending upon your version of QuickBooks. And it's going to be under the payments option over here on the left-hand side. And you're going to see a button that says Learn More over here. And with that Learn More option, you can sign up for QBO payments, and you'll always have that option to send those two things onto your invoices to your customers. Now, the invoices themselves and sales receipts and anything else you record, all the information from those in terms of the customization options, the colors, the logos, things like that, they all come from the gear icon and then the custom form styles section. Whenever you open this up, it's going to give you your standard style. Now, if you alter your standard style, it's also going to update any existing sales transactions that you've already entered. So be mindful of that. But generally speaking, that's not a problem. I just always like to let people know about that. But if that's a problem for you and you just want to start fresh with a new invoice or a new sales receipt from that point forward, you can click on New Style and you can choose what type of sales transaction you want to create a form for. Now, this one, the standard style, we're just going to edit that, and I'm going to show you the different steps that it takes to update these. You can choose different templates. This changes the look and feel of your sales transactions. We also have logos. So right here, you can upload a logo. We have a jaunty little pickle. He's a happy little guy. And then we've got splash some color. Now, QuickBooks Online will automatically apply a color that complements your logo. But if you don't like the color that it chooses, you can choose a different here. There's also fonts. You can choose between different fonts, and you can change the borders and page margins that print out. Now, in the content section, this is where you can click any part over on the right to change the content that's in it, like the header. You can click the header to change what's presented there. And this is where you would change the different names of things. So if you want QuickBooks to refer to your estimates as proposals or quotes or estimates or whatever you want, you can change that here. Also, you can change your sales receipts here. I changed mine over to donations just to demonstrate that you can do that. Here in the middle, this is where QuickBooks gives information to customers about what it is they're buying. You can also turn on an account summary right here, basically just to give them an idea of sort of like a mini statement. And then down here at the very bottom, we have the footer. This is where we're able to tell QuickBooks, tell our customers about a legal disclaimer, I guess, like the one we have. Our crack team of pickle lawyers have given us this legal disclaimer to make sure we never get sued. And then over here in the email section, this is where you can tailor your messaging to your customers with the default subject, default message to the customer, and also you can set up what it is that they'll see with your reminder emails whenever you send those out for invoices if they don't pay. Now, we also have payments. This is where you choose whether or not you want to include free bank transfers and credit cards directly onto your invoices and your sales receipts as you send them out. So, for instance, if I choose bank transfer and I uncheck credit card, whenever I click on Done, by default, whenever I send out sales forms later on, it will only include the free bank transfer option and not include the credit card with the fees applying. I know that some people want to avoid the fees as much as possible. I think the fee is around 2% is what Intuit takes out of whatever you receive in terms of a customer. So bank transfers are free, so a lot of people like to go with that, and that's perfectly fine. And then once you click on Done, that's going to save your changes to those invoices, and that way, whenever you go to create a new one, it's automatically going to have that already applied to it. Now, if you have multiple custom form styles, you can click on Customize down here towards the very bottom, and you can choose between them as well. You can also edit your forms directly from the screen too. Now, as for sales, you can also record them through your phone or through your tablets. So there is an app called QBO Accounting, and it's free. You can do a search for QuickBooks Online in the Play Store or the Apple App Store, and it's the very first one that you'll see. And it's called QuickBooks Online Accounting, Invoices, and Expenses. And once you download that, you can install it for free onto your phone or your tablet. And I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate what that looks like. And I just want to show you very briefly. We're not going to spend a ton of time on it, but I do like to show it off a little bit. So I'm going to bring that up here. I have a recording of me using it on iOS. And it's virtually identical on Android as well. The main difference is that on iOS, and I'll show you what this looks like. So this is the iOS version of the app. And with the iOS version, notice that at the very bottom, there is a plus button. I guess it looks like a play button right now, but it will look like a plus button. On the Android app, the plus button appears up at the top right. That's really the main difference between the two of them. But I'm going to go ahead and play this. And I just want to show you this just as a general look at what the app looks like. Now, whenever we press on the plus button down at the very bottom, it's going to open up a menu very similar to the browser version. So you can just select the transaction you want to create. This is an invoice. So you just select your customer up there at the very top, and then it'll plug in information about the terms, the due date, things like that. But if you want to change any of that information, you can also press on it with your finger. Like if you want to change the terms or you want to change the due date, you can do that automatically. Just press on it. You can choose different terms. You can choose a different due date right there. Now, press on Add Line Item allows you to choose between your different products and services. And here it brings in the same products and services that we saw earlier. All you have to do is press on one of them. And as soon as you do, you can set the quantity, the rate, the amount, whether or not it's also taxable. You can even change the little description down there at the very bottom. Just press on the thing that you want to change, and then you're pretty much done. Now, up there at the top right, we're going to look at the description too. Up there at the top right, notice that there is an Add button. So if you want to add this line item onto the invoice, just press on that, and it puts that onto the invoice. Now, you can press on it again to change any information about it, and you can also press Add Line Item again to add more line items onto the invoice or the estimate or the sales receipt or whatever it is you're recording. Now, down towards the bottom, there's more information like the sales tax being applied. There's also the total. There's customer message, memo. So lots of great safety stuff you can put down there as well. Now, once you press on Save up the top right, it brings us into our next screen. This is a confirmation screen where you can actually send the invoice directly from your phone. And what's cool here is that Qubio keeps track of every step of this process. So it's got like little check marks that it goes through after you've sent it and then after you've received payment and closed it and everything like that. So keep track of all that for you. This is a little invoice that we're going to send out. And so here it says sent. And whenever a customer eventually sees it, it'll light up that next little check mark and then the next one after that after they pay it. So you're able to keep track of information for your sales transactions with the mobile app. I definitely recommend downloading and checking out. It's free, so it's not gonna hurt to check it out. That's for one thing. It also allows you to enter expenses directly from your phone and your tablets too. So that's a cool thing to check out. Now, I want to talk a little bit about reports. Because, of course, once we've entered all these sales transactions, we then want to be able to see what our sales were by customer, by product or service. We also want to check out who owes us money and how much they owe us and whether or not they're overdue. So let's take a look at some reporting options. Now, by clicking on reports over here, we're able to see very first up at the top, these are all of our, I'm going to go over to recommended rather. These are all of our recommended reports. Now, in recommended, first of all, we're going to be able to see sales information from our various sales on our profit and loss statement because they're going to be linked to our income accounts. And also, if you're selling anything that's in inventory, it'll be linked to your cost of goods sold accounts, both of which appear on your profit and loss statement. Now, earlier we made some sales for services and sales of product income and all of that. And the different products and services that we sold were linked to different income accounts. And here we're able to see the total of those sales. We have the products of sales of product income, probably from those rock fountains that we sold, and then the services, probably from the installation services that we charged. Now, you can also click either one of these numbers to drill down at the actual transactions themselves. Here are those invoices right here. We've got $375, that's from the invoice that we created earlier. And then whenever I go back over here, we've also got, I guess I'm looking for last month. Maybe that's why I'm going to change this, because I want to see this month. Hold on. Okay, that's much better. That's more like what I was looking for, because all of our sales take place in May. So here we're able to see sales of product income and services. Click on that. We're able to see, there we are. There's the sale with the my customer, and then the sales receipt with real world training. And then going back over here, then we can see the services that we charged. This is for the $90 worth of installation services that we charged on that invoice. So it breaks it down by income account based upon the income account that is linked to the product or service on the products and services list. So that's how QuickBooks updates your profit and loss statement. But also you have various other reports, like for instance, your sales reports. Now I'm going to go over to my all reports, and you can also use the search field for this. I'm going to look for my sales reports, your review sales, and I'm going to see two different reports here. First, I want to look at the sales by customer summary. The sales by customer summary shows me by customer my sales over whatever date range I have selected right here. So we're able to see our sales by customer here. But there's also a sales by product or service summary, which is also in the sales report section. This is a sales by product or service summary. And again, you can also search for this in this little search field. And here we have the quantity sold for each one of the different products and services we sold over the selected time period, as well as the amount of the sale, the percentage of our total sale that sale represents, and then the average price is right here too. So you get all that great information. Now, in terms of what your customers owe you, you can also look up accounts receivable information, which is a record of what customers owe you, by opening up very similar reports. We're going to go back over the report center. And I'm going to look at two different reports. One is called the AR Aging Summary Report, and then we're also going to look at the AR Aging Detail Report. Now, the AR Aging Summary Report is a report that shows you each one of the different customers that owe you money currently. So we've got Craig's Design and Landscaping on Real World Training, and it shows us how much they owe us that is current. So that means these are invoices that are not overdue. But then it also has listings of invoices that are 1 to 30 days overdue, 31 to 60 days overdue, 61 to 90 days overdue, and 91 and over. And you can click on any one of these amounts to drill down and see the actual transactions that make up those totals. Now, if you want to start out looking at the individual transactions, you can do that too, but it's done with an aging detail report instead of a summary report. So going back over to the report center, that we're going to look at one last report, and I'm going to go ahead and search for this. It'll be the AR Aging Detail. And so with the AR Aging Detail report, it shows us the same information, but it's broken down by invoice. So here we can see invoices that are 91 or more days past due, and then a total amount for those aging period invoices, as well as 31 to 60 days past due, and then a total for those as well. So it shows us the individual invoices right up front whenever you run those reports, so you don't have to drill down and see it. But if you do want to see the individual transactions, you can click on them from here too, and it will go directly to those transactions and open them up so you can see what's going on with those transactions.